On this video, I want to show you how to switch between different business profiles and how to set up those business profiles. When you initially set your Easy As accounting software up, you had an initial screen popped up that asked you different information such as your business name, your address, email address, etc., etc. Now, to regain access to that area again, if you need to, you have two methods. You can click the setup icon located on the main screen, and if you look up to the general area, top left hand corner, it says change your business details. If I click this icon, this pop-up box comes up. Now this was the very first business I set up when I first loaded this machine. Now on the right hand side you can click edit. If I click edit, I now have access to all the information I set up previously. You'll notice here, this is my testing screen, so I've just put, instead of putting a phone number, I've typed the word phone number. And I've typed these words, or I've typed what it is, so that I can see where that locates on the invoice. So when I print an invoice, I just want to show you an example later of where all that information goes. But obviously, if you were entering it, you'd be putting in the actual phone number, etc. And these are the other information, such as your currency symbol, if you're paying sales tax, what the name of the tax is, how much the rate of tax is, etc., etc. On the right hand side here, you will notice that there is a box called one tax system and a two tax system. In probably 80% of countries where this software is currently being used, is employed under a one tax system. And what that means is that your government requires you to collect sales tax or one form of sales tax on goods and services. In some regions of Canada, the state and federal governments there require two forms of sales tax, so you're collecting two different types of sales tax on the sales of goods or services, and that's what the two tax system is for. But if you click this, it clearly tells you what that's about. So normally it's going to be set to 1. And I know that there's other regions in Canada now that have changed to a HST tax, and they've jumped back to a one tax system. But I don't need to go into that. If you need more information, need help on choosing, it fully tells you what information about it. I think that I don't need to explain that much further. Down the bottom here, we have invoice, quote, credit number, and purchase numbering system. When you first create your first invoice with Easy As, it's going to be numbered number 1. Your first quote will start at number 1. That sounds logical. However, a lot of businesses, and myself included, I don't want the very first invoice that I send out at the beginning of the year to be called invoice number 1. I don't want potential clients thinking that this is my first invoice for the year. Even though it might be, I'd rather them not knowing really what number I have, so I actually set this to start at 250 for the year. So the very first invoice that goes out won't actually be 250, it's going to be the next one after that. So when I create invoices, the very first invoice that Easy As will create will be invoice number 251. Even if it's the first day of the new financial year, that's the invoice number that's going to come out. And you can use a different set of invoice numberings for the quotes, etc., etc. If you look over here on the right hand side, Easy As have introduced what they call quote matching system. What that basically means is this: if you put a quote in for a job, and that quote number is quote number, in this case it's the next number, so it's going to be quote number 1001, the invoice, when you invoice that job, will also be invoice number 1001. Easy As will automatically set aside the same invoice number that matches that quote number. And when you issue an invoice from the quotes screen, it instantly matches up with that invoice number and keeps them the same. Obviously, this is only useful for individuals such as, let's take this handyman here, Mr. Maintenance Services. Now, he might have tendered or quoted a job for a real estate office. Say he does some work for real estates, and they say, can you go and fix a door down at this rental property? He puts a quote in for that, and he says it's going to cost $150. He goes and finishes the job. He might only invoice the real estate once a month. So at the end of the month, he provides them then, he has the ability then to provide them with an invoice that matches the exact same number as the quote. So when the real estate goes and checks his list of what is invoiced, they can look at, invoice number 1001, they have to go back to their list and all they have to look for is quote number 1001, bang. They've got a matching quote and it's easy for them to find. It's easy for the Mr. Handyman guy to look up when the real estate's questioning them on a quote and an invoice, or an invoice matching a quote. He can reflect himself, switch backwards and forwards. That is what quote matching system's for. It's obviously not going to be useful for those clients such as builders who might ask for progressive payments and issue 2 or 3 invoices down the road. You really don't need that system switched on, just leave it switched off. But it's up to you whether you use it or not. I'm not going to discuss how it fully works. When it comes time to do the invoice videos, I will show you complete examples of this. Okay, but I just wanted to point this out on this screen. Okay, so that's explain this screen. If I jump back out of here now, I go back to where I was. Now, if I wanted to select this customer, I simply click select, or I click on his name, and it jumps back to the screen. Now, another way to bring that screen up, instead of clicking setup and going in and choosing your business, I could also just click on his name. So if I click on the name, this pops up, and then I can click edit. Naturally, you really don't have to go backwards and forwards in this very often. But this is where you'd go to set up a new business. See, I can't click select here because there's nothing here. If I click edit, and let's say I'm an entrepreneur and I have another business, and it so happens to be that I'm good with my hands and I've set up a spray painting business. So there's my name and my business. I'm going to leave all this for another day. I click close. Now you'll see I've got 2 names here. If I click on spray painting here, or I click here, doesn't matter, it changes to the spray painting business. And if you have a look, there's no records here now. There might be a test record that comes up, a test record that EasyAs puts in there as a test itself, but there's no records. So now if I want to switch back to that business profile again, I click the name. I can click that business name. Now I'm back to this business. See how easy it is? You can switch backwards and forwards at the click of a name. That's simple. That's how easy it is. I think I've explained that side of it.